today we are going to discuss about loyalty, okay, in taxi business. In the taxi business, okay? So loyalty is the act of being faithful and sticking to one thing than being all over. In the recent days, I have actually been discussing with quite a number of taxi drivers. And as we all know, there are so many taxi apps that are out there. If I can just name a few, we have Uber, we have Bolt, okay, we have Faras, we have Litro Cab, we have Yego, we have another one called Wigo. So quite a number of them. And the funny thing about taxi driving is that if you are a driver, you have access to all these applications. What you need to do is to just download them. You download the driver application because there are two applications always. There is the customer application and the driver application. So if you download the driver application and then you upload all your documents, you will have access to all these applications to drive. And what happens, as you can all imagine, is that when you are driving with Uber, let's say you have gotten a client with Uber, you will have to put off or to turn off your Faras, your Bolt, and the rest. And then after you drop your Uber client, what happens is that every driver will turn all the apps on because it is possible, okay? And then you wait for the first app to give you the next job. Maybe it will be Faras. When you get the next job with Faras, you put Uber and the rest off, and so on and so forth. So what happens is that at the end of the day, drivers will end up making around, normal drivers, if you are doing full-time driving of around 12 hours a day, if you are doing 12 hours a day, normally drivers will do around 10 to 20 trips, depending on whether you are having short trips or long distance trip, or whether you are doing town driving or getting trips that, you know, take you away from the hot spots. So if you are doing 10 to 20 trips, you will find that maybe out of, let's say you will do 15 on average, you'll find that maybe 5 will be Bolt, okay? And then maybe another 5 will be Uber, another 1 will be Litro, or something like that. So the trips will be scattered around 2 or 3 apps. And what happens is that when you don't drive with one single app, you tend to have what we call your driver score going down and your star rating going down. What happens is that when you drop every customer, they give feedback about their experience in that trip. And that is what is called the star rating. Okay? And don't forget, the topic of today is loyalty. And I'll come back and tell you why it is important to specialize. I have done that in the past. I have also spoken to some few drivers who told me that they only work with one single app. And I will share with you their numbers. So the star rating is whereby once you drop a customer, they give you a rating according to their experience. There have been so many issues because drivers have complained that passengers don't know how to rate. They want to give you a 5-star and then they press on the first star on their left. And then by so doing, they give you 1 star without knowing. So it is always important for drivers, when you drop a customer, you emphasize that if they are giving you a 5-star, to always focus on, to press on the star on the farthest right hand side, so that it doesn't affect your star rating. So if you are doing trips with so many apps, you will find that your star rating will go down. And when you get 1 star, you get a star rating of 1. You know, this is a very poor rating. It will require you to do like almost 10 trips with a 5-star rating for you to recover from this 1 star that you got with 1. Okay? Otherwise, if you do like only 3 trips the next day, 3 trips the next day, it will take you even like 3-4 months before you recover your 5-star rating. Okay? So what is recommended here is that when you stick with Uber, for example, and you have one client who rates you badly or poorly, you will need to do the next 10 trips with Uber and put all the other apps off so that you recover your star and have a top 5-star rating. And I actually met one person who was working for Bolt. She's a lady, I will not mention her name. She told me that the rating of the driver star, it is very, very important, because she was telling me if the driver star rating is less than 4.5, those drivers are excluded. Okay, they are excluded from what we call the corporate trips. So you will only get regular trips from individuals, but any trip coming from a company or someone who has, been paid for by their company, you will never get those requests, because of course you would expect the expectation of, standards from corporate would be much higher than from regular individuals. But that does not mean that regular individuals do not demand higher standards. But sometimes people just don't care. They want to maybe just get to where they are going, and maybe the next day they will order from Bolt, from Uber, or from whoever else. But when you are talking of corporate clients, those are return customers. Those are people who have dedicated to use Uber for the next few months. So if you don't give them high quality service, then they might change the whole strategy and get someone on board. So why is the star rating important? I have already explained that to you, and I said stick to one app. Otherwise, if your star gets to 4, every driver will tell you, if their star gets to 4, you might stay there forever. If you are driving today with Bolt, tomorrow with Uber, you will never raise your score. It will be very difficult. As I have told you, raising your score is terribly hard compared to like the score going down. Okay. And then there is something also they called, royalty premium. Even drivers, some of the drivers, of course, we don't have visibility to these loyalty premiums, but this is something that, I got insights from that colleague who worked for Bolt some years back. Today, if you are a Bolt driver, from time to time, Bolt will push some promotions onto the app and tells a driver that if they complete the next 10 trips if they complete 10 trips in the next 12 hours, then they will get like a bonus of like 500 shillings for free. So that is what Bolt will do. You do 10 trips in the next 12 hours, you collect your money as usual, you get paid by the client and the tips and everything. And on top of that, Bolt say that they will give you an extra 500 for free. Okay, and that is information that we all know that Bolt does that for their drivers. Imagine what they also do behind the scene, because this sector of taxi driving, it is full of so many dissatisfied, unhappy drivers, and Bolt cannot Bolt, Uber, and the rest, they cannot try to make everyone happy. What they do is that they monitor loyal drivers who stay online for at least 12 hours. At least 12 hours. They have put the driving limit, the number of hours you can be online. If you exhaust your hours with Bolt every day, let me tell you, they will not treat you as a regular driver. They will ensure that they also focus on rewarding you. And that is an insight that I got from that colleague who used to work for Bolt. So, and something else, I have also met some drivers who told me that they drive full-time with Litrocab. Others told me they drive full-time with Yego. These are some of the least popular apps. Okay, some people will tell you they drive with Uber and Bolt most of the time. They also have access to Litro, but the last time they got a trip with Litro or Yego, it is probably 3-4 months ago. Even me, when I used to be on the road most of the time, I could do like 50 trips with Bolt, maybe 25 trips with Uber, and maybe out of 100 trips that I do, maybe only 3 will come from Litrocab and maybe 1 from Yego. But imagine there are drivers who rely on this full time. What does that tell you? That Litrocab is not in the business of giving trips to all drivers who have the app installed. They are focused on rewarding loyal drivers who can guarantee them quality service, who have been with them 12 hours each day. You know, it's not people who just get online for like 5 minutes hoping to get a trip, and when they don't get, they jump into the other apps. The fact that there are drivers who live on Yego and Litro Cab, while others spend 6 months before they get a single trip with Yego, that tells you something, that loyalty matters. We cannot ignore that. And the last point I wanted to talk about here is about the Bolt financing. I know you have all seen Bolt and Uber. Let me put it that way. I know you have seen a lot of bodas that are branded with Uber and others are branded with Bolt colors. So there are two scenarios. There is a scenario whereby I can buy my own boda or my own vehicle. So right now, Uber and Bolt, they are not yet in the car financing. So I'll talk more about the bodas. So I was saying that there is a scenario whereby I can buy my own bike and take it to Bolt, and they brand it with their colors, and then they will be paying me some amount if I complete certain number of trips for allowing them to put their signage or their branding on my boda. So they will be paying me weekly or monthly amount for allowing them to brand my vehicle with their colors. There is a second scenario whereby if you buy a boda through Bolt, because Bolt has partnered with the M-Copper, they have also partnered with several sellers of bodas, like the electric bikes and those kind of stuff. So you can walk into Bolt's office and they will guide you on how to be financed and get a boda. If you get that boda financed, let's say by M-Copper or some other companies there that are in partnership with Bolt, that boda will not be allowed to operate on Uber platform. You will not be allowed to carry on these other platforms if it was financed by Bolt. If it was financed by Uber, you will only be allowed to carry with Uber, because they will install tracker in your bike, and then they will definitely know when you are riding and when you are not. If they see that you are not driving with Bolt, if Bolt is off and they are the one who financed you, and still they can see a lot of movements within the city, they will definitely know that you are driving with another app, and then you will be at risk of losing the partnership with them. So that will tell you that if you take a loan with Bolt, Bolt partner, to buy a boda and operate only on Bolt, they will definitely prioritize you because they know you are not doing business with anyone else. If you don't get a trip with Bolt, it simply means you are not getting it from anywhere else. So they have to prioritize that. So those are insights that I can say are always behind the scene. Remember that Bolt is this digital taxi business is a data-driven model. The algorithm is always informed by numbers. So there are so many analytics that happen behind the scene. Even when drivers receive calls, when you receive a request and then you don't call the customer immediately, because there are those who take maybe a minute or 2 minutes to wait for the customer to call instead of them calling. All those statistics are recorded, and at the end of the day, it influences how you as a driver will relate with the app, okay, and how the app will actually respond to giving you how do I call it, clients in the future. So my advice is this one: if you can find an app that works for you, and try for at least 3 months to drive with a single app, and tell me what will be your results. I'm not saying that my advice will always work 100%, but I believe you will find a lot of value when you drive with only one app. Okay? Cheers, guys. If you do this, always comment and let us know what your experience will look like. Bye-bye.